Welcome back to today's show. On the show today, we have orthopedic surgeon Dr. Evans, all the way from Cleveland Clinic, Florida, and he has a strong connection here in Canada. So, Peter, let's talk a little bit about what Cleveland Clinic does, what it offers to the community, and then we can bridge the gap up here in Canada.
Sure. The Cleveland Clinic's a different kind of entity. There's very few entities like ours in the United States where we're physician run. And we actually, probably the big clinics would be us and Mayo Clinic, where they have a sort of a practice model, a fully employed physician model. Different than Mayo Clinic is that ours is run by physicians at every level, from CEO on down. We have a lot of administrative support, but we pride ourselves on a physician-run institution. And it's different. It was built in 1921 by 4 or 5 docs who had this idealistic goal of patient care, research, education, and all of our physicians are salaried and no incentives. And the reason for that is they want people thinking about parsing their time for different of those activities that I've just mentioned. So that's a very unique model. It sounds very anti-American, if you will, but it works very well. And we have a patient-first philosophy. We've now grown from this small place in Cleveland to now over 70,000 employees. We're in multiple countries. And the Florida expansion has been the most recent. We've been in Fort Lauderdale for 30 years and now just moved up the coast, buying 2 health systems just further north, one in Stewart and one up in Vero Beach. We've expanded to London, England now. We just opened our office in London, England, just outside Buckingham Palace, and we have the largest private hospital in London.
Wow.
We're also in Abu
Dubai,
Dhabi.
Dubai, yeah, Abu Dhabi, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
Abu
we're in
Dhabi,
Abu
yeah.
Dhabi. We have a full, beautiful hospital. I've been over there, and it's a wonderful hospital. And we have a neurodegenerative institute in Las Vegas. And now we have Toronto. Of course, we've been in Toronto for a while. Downtown.
Tell us about Toronto. Yeah, tell us about Toronto a
Yeah.
little bit.
So the Toronto operation started out pretty much as an executive health type care, and they wanted to do more, but there are restrictions. There's restrictions on healthcare, and so it's a little bit financially difficult to run business as an outside entity, as a non-Canadian entity. And so we're just apparently starting to do some expansion, looking at adding some surgical services also. So that's new. We'll see how it works out. We also have expanded our physical therapy services with Michael Clarfield, who had probably the most prominent sports medicine practice in the Toronto area. All the athletes, he took care of the Leafs forever. He's now a full-time Cleveland Clinic employee and brought his whole practice and his group to us. So we've
And who
expanded.
is that? Who is that gentleman? What was that gentleman's name?
Michael Clarfield.
Okay.
And he's been the gold standard name for sports medicine in Toronto for decades.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's wonderful. Wow, this is really great information. Let's move it a little bit forward. And I know let's talk a little bit of hockey, Harvard,
Sure.
concussions. How do you feel about going on with today, the way hockey has changed so much over the last
Well,
20 years?
yeah, it's interesting. I still remember, you remember this too, when Don Cherry was sitting there on Hockey Night in Canada and he started going off on about equipment. He started saying this equipment today, it's too much. The pads are too strong, too thick. And it's like the old boys. When we were tough, we put magazines around our knees. We wore felt on our shoulders. And, I thought he was just being that kind of guy, but he's spot on. He was ahead of his time calling it right. Guys now are essentially armored when they go in. And so the impact is huge. 2 things happen. One, they go faster and they don't care about crashing in because they're protected. And then they impact each other. So the body to body contact is more. Thankfully, the boards have some flex in them, but still a problem. They're being more thoughtful, especially in the younger kids now, about hitting from behind and heads up hockey. It's a really important concept, and I coached for many years after I finished all my college years, and spending a lot of time with these kids, keeping them from, hitting kids when they have their head down, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's the consequences are too great. My own son got 2 terrible concussions and couldn't finish his senior year in high school, and ended up having to swap over to lacrosse. But hey, a nice Canadian sport.
Lacrosse. That's
But anyway, but head injury is not even close. There's
that's a
not even
heavy
close.
sport.
because it's field lacrosse. It's not box.
Okay. Okay.
So it's field lacrosse, and so they don't have the head injuries at all. But he had two terrible head injuries from.
Well, that's a great point that you brought up about Don Cherry, because you watch the '70s replays and no one's wearing a helmet, no one's got the big shoulder pads on, and no one seems to get really hurt. Like
Right,
they seem just to get up and I
right.
don't know. You're
Well,
that's
it's
spot
like
on.
rugby. It's like rugby. My other sport I played through high school and through college was rugby. And in rugby, when you play rugby, the reason we got very successful, and I toured in England and Wales in high school, was because we were playing a little bit of American football style rugby. In other words, when people came down the field, we tackled them head on, shoulder to body. Whereas the Brits and the UK and everyone else, it's more you fall with the player. That's why you wear no equipment. There's no equipment in
Mm,
rugby, right?
that's
And so
right.
it's a different kind of hit. And so you're following with them, and you're just tangling them up on the way down. But we started sticking people, right? And so then the injuries start occurring even in rugby now, and where they didn't occur back in the day, if you will. So
Yep.
that game is also morphed a little bit.
Wow, that's great, Peter. I really thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today on Bell 5 TV. If people want to find out more information about Cleveland Clinic or anything to do with your practices personally, Peter, could they go anywhere? Where should they? What do you
Yeah,
recommend?
the Cleveland Clinic website is great. We are probably the number two content for medical content in the internet, period, and we're growing. We're actually just stepped it up and hired 300 new 100 content people, and we're going to be adding more content to the internet for everybody.
Yeah. Before I do let you go, I want to say two things. Is there a little bit of advice you could give to new doctors and nurses and people that want to get into the profession? Any little bit of advice you could give?
Well, it's got to be a passion, right? So it doesn't matter about the what's in front of you, the mountains you got to climb. You want it, you go for it. If that's what makes you get up in the morning and feel happy, you just got to go for it.
That's great. And I want to say I'm so happy. I had you on for over 15 minutes and we didn't talk COVID.
Excellent.
I'm so happy we did. I mean, I wish
I
we
love
kind of did, but I'm so, you know what I mean? I think we're
you
all
got it.
COVID out, so I'm so happy we did. So, Peter, again, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the Cleveland Clinic for supporting the channel. We really
All
do
the best
appreciate that.
all the best to you, Jay, and all the best to your crew and everybody.
Thanks again, Peter. Stay
Bye-bye.
tuned, and we'll be right back to wrap the show. I'm Jay Stoyan. You're watching the Today Show.